Linguistics, Discourse Analysis. Complete Chapter 11. Discourse Analysis. The word discourse is usually defined as language beyond the sentence, and so the analysis of discourse is typically concerned with the study of language in texts and conversation. Language users have the ability to go beyond just recognizing correct or incorrect forms and structures, and can interpret and make sense of fragmented language, such as newspaper headlines and notices, by understanding the relationships between the parts and creating complex interpretations. This ability allows us to effectively communicate and understand each other in everyday language use. Interpreting discourse. Though we reject ungrammatical language, we still try to make sense of it and interpret what the writer intended to convey. This example, provided by Eric Nelson, is from an essay by a student learning English, and contains ungrammatical forms and misspellings, yet it can be understood. Consequently, we use language to communicate effectively, relying not only on linguistic knowledge, but also on other cognitive and social abilities. Cohesion. The ties and connections between words that exist within texts are called cohesion. There are several cohesive ties in this text. My father once bought a Lincoln convertible. He did it by saving every penny he could. That car would be worth a fortune nowadays. However, he sold it to help pay for my college education. Sometimes I think I'd rather have the convertible. We can identify connections here in the use of words to maintain reference to the same people and things throughout. There are also connections created by terms that share a common element of meaning, such as money and time. The verb tenses in the first four sentences are in the past, creating a connection between those events, in contrast to the present tense of the final sentence marking a change in time and focus. Cohesion alone is not enough to make a text understandable. Note that the following text also has these connections in Lincoln the car red that color, her she in letters a letter. However, there is a factor called coherence that can help us distinguish connected texts that make sense from thoughts that do not. Coherence. Coherence is the connections that readers and listeners create in their minds to arrive at a meaningful interpret of texts. Coherence is created through shared understanding and context, rather than just relying on the words spoken. In conversations, coherence is created through shared understanding and context, rather than just relying on the words spoken. The example interaction shows how analyzing speech acts such as making a request, giving reason, and accepting. Conversation analysis. English conversation can be described as an activity in which two or more people take turns speaking. Typically, only one person speaks at a time. Silence between speaking turns is usually avoided. If multiple people try to speak at once, one will stop and wait for the other to finish. Speakers signal the end of their turn by asking a question and pausing at the end of a sentence or phrase. Other participants can indicate they want to take a turn by making short sounds, for example, using body language, for example, shifting position, making facial expressions. Turn taking. The way in which each speaker takes a turn in conversation is called turn taking. Conversational style and participation strategies can influence turn-taking conventions. Some individuals, often those who are long-winded or accustomed to dominating conversations, may employ a strategy to avoid relinquishing their turn by avoiding pauses at the end of sentences, using connectors like and then, so, and but to create run-on sentences. Pausing at points where the message is incomplete, filling pauses with hesitation markers like and ah. Pauses and filled pauses. Speakers may use pauses and filled pauses, for example, to maintain control of their turn in conversation. In the examples provided, In the example below, speaker X uses filled pauses, for example you know, to fill in hesitations and prevent others like speaker Y from interrupting and taking their turn. Adjacency pairs. Conversation often follows established patterns, making it easier for speakers to navigate. One such pattern is the adjacency pair, which consists of a first part and a second part, such as greetings, speaker, good morning, first part, listener, good morning, second part, question-answer sequences, speaker, where's Mary, first part, listener, she's at work already, second part, and thanking and leave-taking, speaker, thanks for your help, first part, listener, you're welcome, second part. These patterns help speakers anticipate and respond appropriately, making conversation more predictable and efficient. However, not all first parts are immediately followed by second parts, and conversations can involve multiple questions and answers before a response is given. Insertion sequences. This is an adjacency pair that comes between the first and second parts of another pair, delaying the response to the original first part. Consider the following example. The sequence question Q2 and its answer A2 comes between the first question Q1 and its answer A1, delaying the response to the original first part. The cooperative principle. The cooperative principle in conversation, first described by Paul Grice, which assumes that participants are working together to achieve effective communication. This principle includes four maxims. 1. Quantity. Be informative, but not too much or too little. 2. Quality. Be honest and have evidence for what you say. 3. Relation. Be relevant to the conversation. 4. Manner. Be clear, brief, and orderly. These maxims help explain regular features of conversation, such as implied meaning. For example, when someone asks how do you like a sandwich, and you reply, a sandwich is a sandwich, you're implying that it's not worth talking about rather than simply stating the obvious. This response adheres to the quantity maxim by providing minimal information, suggesting that there's no strong opinion to share. In logical terms, the reply, sandwich is a sandwich, appears to have no communicative value since it states something obvious and hence would appear to be a tautology. Hedges. Hedges are words or phrases that indicate uncertainty or imprecision, such as sort of, kind of, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not absolutely sure. These hedges help speakers soften claims to avoid appearing too certain or absolute, show awareness of the quality maxim, be honest and have evidence, indicate possibility rather than certainty, express thoughts or feelings rather than stating facts. For example, his hair was kind of long. The book cover is sort offilo. I think it's possible that Jackson may be guilty. Implicatures. This is an additional meaning conveyed by a speaker adhering to the cooperative principle. Speakers imply meaning beyond the literal interpretation of their words, and listeners infer these implications. The example conversation between Carol and Laura illustrates this. Carol, you coming to the party tonight? Laura, got an exam tomorrow. Although Laura doesn't directly answer the question, Carol infers that Laura means no, or probably not, because Laura is relevant relation maxim, informative quantity maxim. Carol uses this assumption to connect the dots between Laura's statement and the implied meaning. Exam tomorrow implies study tonight. Study tonight implies not attending party tonight. This additional conveyed meaning is called an implicature, which is a key aspect of cooperative conversation. Background knowledge. We use our background knowledge to interpret conversations and texts. Readers use their cultural and conventional knowledge to make inferences about a text. For example, after reading the text below, John was on his way to school last Friday. He was really worried about the math lesson, Most readers infers that they think John is probably a schoolboy. Since this piece of information is not directly stated in the text, it must be an inference. Other inferences, for different readers, are that John is walking or that he is on a bus. However, readers' interpretations can change as new information is presented, and they quickly abandon previous inferences that don't fit with new context. Such as, last week he had been unable to control the class. It was unfair of the math teacher to leave him in charge. On encountering this sentence, most readers decide that John must be a teacher. Schemas and scripts. Schemas and scripts are mental frameworks that help us interpret and make sense of the world. A schema is a static mental structure that represents our conventional knowledge of a particular domain or situation, such as a supermarket schema that involves food displayed on shelves, arranged in aisles, shopping carts, and baskets, checkout counter, and so on. A script, on the other hand, is a dynamic schema that involves a series of conventional actions, like going to the dentist or eating in a restaurant. On the basis of our restaurant script, we would be able to say a number of things about the scene and events briefly described in this short text. Eating in a restaurant. Trying not to be out of the office for long, Susie went into the nearest place, sat down, and ordered an avocado sandwich. It was quite crowded, but the service was fast, so she left a good tip. Back in the office, things were not going well. From the script, we would assume that Susie opened a door to get into the restaurant. Thatch took one of the chairs. There, that she ate the sandwich. Then she paid for it, and so on. These mental frameworks help us fill in gaps in information and make inferences about what is not explicitly stated. They are essential in understanding discourse and how we create meaning from language. Chapter completed. See you again in the next lecture. Goodbye.